Welcome to Ron and Nick's Best Friend Podcast, a show for anyone who needs a friend, where we tell how we met our best friend, the Holy Spirit, the stories of how he meets us in our everyday lives, and how you can meet him too. Welcome to Ron and Nick's Best Friend Podcast, Bible study version.
I said division or something.
Division last week. Yeah, we're not dividing over this.
We're in John chapter 11.
This is where we go through we go through Bible verses one at a time. We happen to be in the Gospel of John chapter 11.
And who wrote the Bible?
The Holy Spirit.
And why did he write it?
So that we could have a relationship with him.
Just information.
Not just information. That's correct. Yeah, he's looking to connect with us. So we're going to read, and we're going to ask the Holy Spirit to meet us.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to start at verse 17 again because this is the second half of the story.
Right.
On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
I mean, she just told him
Told him, yeah. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Boy, that was a great act of imagination there. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again.
Say what?
Say what? Martha answered, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day.
And she didn't
what
get
she
it.
knows. She doesn't know what she does know, right? Jesus said to her, this was last week, I am the resurrection and the life. Resurrection and life are on the scene. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies.
This is it?
This is it.
All right, here we go.
And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Oh my gosh. All right, Holy Spirit, speak to us and tell us why you recorded this, why this, and Jesus, why you said this, so that we can connect you. We love you, and we trust you, and lead us in the way of life.
All right. I'm just going to, I just read it the first time. During this, not for the first time.
I always feel like when you say that,
you
I
got
should
to apologize to people.
No,
I've read it before, but I'm just talking about the first time.
This is the Gospel of John. It is in the Bible.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
the first time through is anyway. You know what? You know where immediately my mind goes, because you've done it last week.
I have no idea.
Okay, here it is. All right, picture it, guys. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? I always go back to what it looked like. Dude, this was not a conversation like, look at me. It wasn't like we're talking, hey, whoever believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? No. I think he's looking eye to eye, 1 foot away, 1.5 feet away. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And and I think he's seeing right through her. And the question, that's my dog. And then the question is this. I'm not going to let that dog.
It's all right.
All right. The question is this. Roxy, come here. I'm sorry. The question is this. I've never heard him say this. Well, he does say it a few times other than that. But do you believe this? I mean, he puts her
on the spot.
Yeah. He tells her, I am the life. You will never die. First of all, that's freaking, like out there. What are you talking about? Resurrection. I mean, God knows what she's thinking. Do you believe this? There's the fork in the road. I know we're not going to go to the next verse. I'm dying to go there, but we're not. That's what hits me. Do you believe? The Lord has given us a choice in everything. We have a choice. Do we believe? Do we believe he speaks to us? Do we believe in the Holy Spirit? Do we believe the Holy Spirit lives in us? That's a question that we face on a daily basis. Is he going to get us through this? If we're dying, are we going to be resurrected? Are we going to be with him? Do you believe this? That's the only thing I got on that.
That's the first thing that pops. That's cool. Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with you. I've always thought, when you've done a good job of bringing us to this and saying, I always think about the person, you're trying to get in the scene, and you've done a good job of that while we go through this, because, and I keep saying, this is not a theological, this is not a classroom. This is not a lecture. This is not a teacher that is, this is a lab. Okay, this is a lab. This is hands-on. This is where the
Ooh.
theology is in real life. This if you wanted to go to seminary and go to theology class, like you could go to rabbi school and you could learn all the Torah, you could learn all the stuff, and you could even sit with Jesus and let him teach you the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, but this is a lab. I used to hate labs. I hated labs. I was really good at gathering information, gathering it and categorizing it and ordering it and saying, okay, I'm going to put a category on this. But when you put me in the lab and I had to make
Explain what you're talking about with a lab.
Like a lab. It's like when you have to actually practically put to practice what you've learned, in the classroom. This is like happening in real life. This is like chemistry lab. Okay, I put this with this, and then this reaction happens, and you're going to see it. You're going to see this thing happen. Okay, so what's going on is like Jesus, the professor, the teacher, is coming out into the world, the real place. Actually, it's God is coming out into the real place, and it's like, I'm going to make this very real to you. I'm going to demonstrate this stuff to you. So it's like, this isn't just you might think you're in a classroom, and Martha evidently thinks she's in a classroom, but actually she's in a lab. And the other part of it is like, here's what stands out to me. What do you mean you'll never die? What do you really mean they will never die? Because you could be saying, wait a second, remember, there's a dead guy here. There's a dead guy around the corner, and before long we're going to find out he's been in the grave a long time, long enough to stink. Because that's going to come up. That'll be interesting to get to. So he's actually going to, he's rotting, and according to them. And you're saying, if you believe in me, you'll never die? So what are you saying? Lazarus doesn't believe in you? Because he died? I mean, how's that work? And that's what happens in labs.
Wow.
That's why I hated labs. You go into the lab, and you're like, I thought this is the way things work because I learned all this stuff in books. And now I'm here, and it doesn't work the same way that it works in books. I mean, the books are okay. The books are fine. But now this is real life. And it's messy, and it doesn't, and the things don't work the way I like them to work or want them to work. And now Jesus is saying, okay, you won't die. Okay, I missed that part of the book. I missed that chapter because my brother is dead. So either my brother is a non-believer, based upon what you just said, who lives and believes in me will never die, which is an interesting way he puts it. What do you mean, whoever lives and believes in me?
Well, that's where I'm going. Let me throw this out.
Yeah.
Can you actually die while you're alive? Yes. Could you be dead while you're still breathing and walking and working and having a relationship with people? Yes.
Done it. Well, actually, we know that's true. Go back to the Garden of Eden. What happened? He said, don't eat or you'll die.
Oh.
So what did they do? They ate. Okay, now Adam and Eve both eat, and they're walking around. But they're dead. But they're alive.
So what do we say? It's and and nor, right?
Yes, both and.
Both and.
Yeah,
right.
You're both dead and alive. You're both dead and alive.
So let's take that way. So whoever lives by believing in me.
No, whoever lives and believes.
And believes in me will never die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got it. Well, let's just talk about present tense. You have Christ in your life. You have the Holy Spirit that speaks to you. You may go through, we just did a thing on suffering, okay? You may go through suffering and trials and disappointments and failures and blah, 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 blah. But it ain't going to kill you if you have the Spirit of the living God, which you do, living inside you. Now, death to me is not having any hope or having anything like that in you. That's death to me.
Right. Well, if you look, what would it look like to living and believing in Him? I think the way that this is kind of clunky, of course, the way it's translated. I think it's supposed to be like these are things that are going on at the same time. Living and believing in me are kind of one thing. Believing and living and believing. It's not like believe and live or live and believe. It's like he's putting them together.
Believe it.
He's actually saying what he said last verse is pulling it into this second half of the verse, second half of the sentence. He's talking about, I'm the resurrection and the life. And so having us together, having those things put together is life. Like you said last week, if you go back and listen to that podcast, living in him is life. Believing in him is life. So what does that look like? Well, Adam and Eve ate off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They die. Okay? So what does it look like to die right now? Keep eating off that tree.
Ooh.
No, that's death. You keep eating off that tree. Well, I got to decide today, is it good or is it bad? Is it good or is it bad? I'm eating off the same tree. Or I could eat off the tree of life, which is to believe in Jesus and go, okay, do I have to make a judgment right now? Do I have to defend myself right now? Do I have to judge somebody right now?
So you could be dead for a day.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could live the day dead.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not like dead like forever locally or here presently. You could have a day where you went through something without.
I think you have moments in every day where you're dead.
Ooh.
I think you have moments in every day like, I don't know. Again, I go back to marriage because it's such a discipleship course, and it's marriage is its own lab.
Yeah.
Of what, because you go, okay, am I believing in Jesus right now when my wife doesn't affirm me?
Oh wow.
And doesn't, or am I going to go, I'm going to eat off the other tree and I'm going to die right now? And Jesus talks about this in other places. He says, lay down your life and you find it, hold on to your life and you lose it. Okay, Jesus answers your question. Can you live dead? Yes, Jesus says so.
Yes.
You hold on to your life. Okay, my wife doesn't affirm me. I immediately pick up my life and say, you can't talk to me that way. What am I doing? I'm holding on to my life. You can't talk to me that way. I'm defending my own life. Or if I eat off the tree of life and I say, I believe in you, Jesus. Who am I?
You're my beloved.
You're my beloved. He says to me, you're my beloved. And I go, oh, okay, well, then you can talk to me any way you want. Doesn't change that.
Ooh.
So
that's a lesson right there, dude. Just
yeah, well, now I'm alive, right? I laid down my life and I listened to Jesus, which honestly, I mean, don't think out there, and you guys know this. You know it. What does it feel like when your wife gets in your face or in your grill, or your husband gets in your grill and does this and doesn't affirm you, or does worse and devalues you and is ugly to you? What does it feel like to not defend your own life, to not say you can't talk to me that way, to choose to eat off the tree of life? It feels like dying.
Yeah.
Like I really want to get you back. I really want to say this thing. Okay, no. You lay down your life and you find it. All of a sudden you find it. Whoever believes in me will never die is a very practical verse, because then you go, oh, I'm believing in you. I'm alive today. I'm living all day.
Yeah.
Living alive all day. And it's
listen, for
the best way to live.
For some of you, that's going to sound really crazy about living in the moment, every moment with God present. Now, I'm not saying I do that. Please don't interpret that. I've had those days, but there is something special and something that you strive to do, that through all your entire day, you're in communion with the Holy Spirit, with God. Your eyes are wide open to all scenarios that are going on. You're listening to Him on the conversations you're having. And man, I'll tell you, I've had those days. Oh, I think you even said that. Remember you said to me a week or two ago, you go, I just feel God's favor. Remember you told me that?
Well, it was last week.
It was last week.
Yeah, I was just having...
You called me and told me that. You explain that feeling of euphoria.
I think it's exactly this. It's an awareness of identity, awareness of presence, awareness of Jesus' favor.
And you don't say that often. I mean, you called me and you got me. I feel God's favor.
Well, I don't tell you often.
Oh, you feel that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't
right.
talk about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Talk about it then.
Well, it's exactly what I just said. It's an awareness of His presence and awareness of His life. Yeah, I'm alive a lot. I was dead for a long time. I was dead alive for a long time. Matter of fact, the whole 13 years I talk about of being depressed was an exercise of 13 years worth of eating off the wrong tree. Because what I would do is I would sit and Google things about curing depression, like whatever the next thing was. Magic mushrooms, electroshock therapy, all kinds of different things. What's the next best drug? Okay, what am I doing? The whole time I'm going, okay, I got to fix this. I'm going to eat off this tree. I'm not going to rest. I'm not going to believe in Jesus. I'm not going to leave myself in his hands because I don't trust him. And this doesn't happen, this happens honestly. It didn't happen dishonestly. It happened because I was suffering already, and he wasn't moving fast enough, and I wanted my suffering to stop. Last episode we talked about suffering, and that really was what was going on. What was I doing? I was dead, and I was dead. And what's the difference? His voice speaks into the suffering. You hear him. And I think what he's saying is like, I am life. What did he say last verse? I am life. And you go, oh, I believe your life. I'm going to believe you, listen to you, walk with you. Now I'm coming alive. And actually what happened to me is that coming out of depression was an exercise after that 13 years, and it's still going on today, of becoming more and more alive. And that's what I talk about, that favor. I think the favor is like the days of feeling very acutely aware of being in his presence.
I'll just, as we're getting close to the end, I'm just going to tell you, I'm not blaming Martha if she doesn't get what he's saying and where we went with this, because we have the advantage of what has just the book, the Bible, the story, the beginning, the end, and we can actually look into it a little bit deeper than Martha at the moment when he says, do you believe in this? And actually go, yes, there's actually life and death currently. And, well, let me back up. Maybe I'm totally wrong. The scriptures were written, the Old Testament was written with Adam and Eve during that time, right?
Sure, yeah.
So those words were spoken.
What words?
That you're going to die in the garden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they knew that. I mean, you eat of this, you'll die. Yeah, that's there. Again, it's like what Martha knows is incomplete. It's not. She knows. She knows a lot, but what she knows is in the way of getting to know Jesus. It's just in the way. It's in the way. I'm going to read this note. I think this is good. I did this last week. I don't do this often, but I'm going to read my note.
It was good last week.
Yeah. Okay.
It was. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, this is the note that I read, and I think this is appropriate.
You're speaking to Jesus about this?
No, I think this is actually more written. Just a note to a note to note. All who live believing in me don't die. This is what Jesus is saying. This seems like a better translation. All who live believing in me don't die. Believing in Jesus isn't like believing a fact. It is entering into the truth of who he is. Another way of saying this would be that no one who is alive. Another way of saying this would be that no one is alive who doesn't believe in Jesus. He is the doorway into life, not a mother's womb.
Ooh.
No one comes alive without belief in Jesus. Is this right? Then when he says to Martha, do you believe? He is asking her, are you alive? Are you really and totally alive? And that's the question that we can ask you out there in our tribe, and that we should ask each other. Am I really and totally alive? You are, to the extent that you believe in Jesus.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Ron and Nick's Best Friend Podcast, a show for anyone who needs a friend. Join us every week right here as we talk about who?
Our best friend, the Holy Spirit. And if you want more information about him or the show, you can find it at www.ronandnicksbestfriend.com.
And don't forget to subscribe. I think it's great. No, there's great stuff there.